Good evening, everyone. Just let me know if I'm audible as well as visible. Okay, so the other day in the last class, we were discussing about consideration, right? We completed almost the essential elements of consideration. Let me give you a short recap of whatever we studied in the last class. We studied that consideration is basically, in layman language, if we say, consideration is something in return. Whatever you are giving, against that, whatever you are receiving is consideration. Okay. Next thing you have to keep in mind is we discussed the definition of consideration, that what exactly consideration is. We discussed some essential elements, and the first three essential elements renders the definition of consideration. All the three characteristics combinedly forms the definition of consideration, etc. That's all that we studied in the last class. When I started this topic, consideration, I told you that consideration is very essential. Whenever you are making a contract, just make sure that there is some consideration. If there is no consideration in any kind of contract, that contract will never be valid. So it is very essential element. The general rule says that if there is no consideration, then there will be no contract. Now, for example, if I sell you something, I will not use word sell. If I give you something free of cost, I am not taking anything from you. I gave you my phone and I did not take a single penny from you. That means what? I am not the contract between us is not valid. Why? Because I have given you my phone, but in return, did I get something? No, I did not. Yeah. So that's why we say that whenever you are making a contract, whenever you are entering into a contract, just make sure that both the parties, it is not like that only one party gets something in return and another is left empty handed. No, both the parties must get something in return, then only it is a valid contract. But what happens now? For example, if my father gifted me some property at my marriage. Now, did I pay any consideration, any kind of money to my father? No, he gave this property just because he loves me or whatever the reason is. So now this contract will not be valid because I have not given any consideration to my father. So what happens here, if this general rule was applicable on each and everything, so these contracts would have been become void. So to avoid such situations, we have formed some exceptions to these rules. Some exceptions where there is no consideration, still your contract becomes valid only. Okay, your contract does not become void. The general rule clearly states that if you do not get anything in return while performing a contract, while entering into a contract, then then your contract will not be valid. The nature of the contract will be void, void ab initio. But there are certain exceptions to these rules, and if these exceptions, if we fall under these exceptions, then there is no need to have consideration. Now, what are these exemptions? First, it is when you make contract out of natural love and affection. When you make contract out of natural love and affection, in those situations, if there is no consideration, then also your contract becomes valid only. But whenever we talk about exceptions, there are certain conditions to follow. Now, what is natural love and affection? Like, for example, husband gifted something to his wife. Now in this case, husband and wife are living together. Husband and wife have love and affection between them. Now if husband gifted anything to his wife, then in that case that contract will not be valid. So legally wife will not be the owner of the whatever she had received. So to avoid this situation, we say that because there is love and affection between this husband and wife, so even if husband gives anything to his wife and he did not get anything in return, then also your contract becomes completely valid. Then also your contract becomes completely valid. But if you want to come under this exemption, then you have to follow certain conditions. First is, whenever you are making such contracts, that is out of natural love and affection, you are making any kind of contract where there is no consideration. So make sure that these contracts are always in writing. These contracts cannot be oral. If you are orally, just my husband told me that I'm gifting you this and that, no, this is not a valid contract. If he wants to transfer something to me, if he wants to give something to me, then in that case, if he is making these kind of contracts, then in that case, your contract must be in writing. Orally, it cannot happen. Only writing is not necessary. Is not enough. Only writing is not enough. You have to get this return document registered. If you're not getting this return document registered, then again your contract will not be valid. So whenever you are making contract out of natural love and affection, just make sure that if you're just saying is not enough here. Orally you cannot do this. You have to keep this contract in return, and that too you have to get it registered. Okay, if you're not getting it registered by the Department of Registration, then this contract will not be valid. Again, one more important factor you have to keep in mind while making such contracts, that is, there must be love and affection between the parties. Now, this point is very essential. Whenever you are making contracts, then you have to make sure that both the parties which are under this contract and which are without consideration, both must share a relationship that has love and affection between them. If love and affection is absent, if love and affection is absent, if there is no love and affection between the parties, then these contracts will not be valid. Either they are in writing or they are registered. Whatever the case is, if there is no love and affection between the parties, then the contract will not be valid. Now, for example, if Mr. A and Mrs. A, okay, husband and wife, Mr. A and Mrs. A, both live separately. They are not divorced. But they do not share a loving bond between them. So by their mutual consent, they got separated. They live apart. Now, if this husband, that is, if Mr. A gives anything to Mrs. A, in that case, now this contract will not come under this head. Reason behind this is, although they are husband and wife, but they are living apart. They are not living together, and they are living apart because there is no love and affection between the parties. So in this situation, if you make contract without consideration, then it will not be valid. One more condition here is the parties must stand in near relationship. Now, whatever the parties is, if they share a near relationship, then only they will come under this exception. Otherwise, they will not come under this exception. Now, what is the definition of near relationship? The definition of near relationship is different. It depends upon the circumstances. But technically, if we see that the blood relations or the in-laws wala relations are considered as near relationship. Rather, apart from these, they are not. For example, if I told you that I and my friend share a very true bond, we have a lot of love and affection between both of us. So now if my friend is gifting me something, then here this contract will not be valid, because me and my friend, she is my friend, okay, but we do not share any kind of blood relation. We do not share any kind of in-laws relation. There is nothing. There is no relation. So here the contract between us will not be valid because because the consideration is absent here. Okay. So you have to make sure that whenever you are making contract consideration, and that too out of natural love and affection, then these 4 points are to be fulfilled. Okay, so what are these 4 points? First of all, you have to make these contracts in writing. Writing is very necessary, orally will not do. Second, this written document must be registered. Third, the parties must have love and affection between them. If there is no love and affection, then contract will not be valid. And lastly, there must be near relationship. If there is no near relationship, for example, your father's friend has gifted something to you and you say that we share a very close bond. No, that is also not considered here. Near relationship means near relationship only, that is in-laws relation or either the blood relation. Okay, so this point you have to make sure. Here a very renowned case happened where the name of the case was Balfour versus Balfour, Mr. Balfour versus Mrs. Balfour. Now what happened here? There were husband and wife, Mr. Balfour and Mrs. Balfour. They used to live in America. But after some time, Mr. Balfour has to shift in some other country due to work. So what happens? Mr. Balfour and Mrs. Balfour got shifted in some other country. What happened after some time? Mrs. Balfour started was not feeling well in that country. Started some kind of disease. So what happened? The doctor there were not able to find out what is happening to Mrs. Balfour. So what happened? Mr. Balfour took Mrs. Balfour again to America, and then he got herself checked there. Then what happened? Mrs. Balfour came to know that the weather conditions of the country in which they were living were not suitable for her. Those conditions were not suiting Mrs. Balfour. But Mr. Balfour has to go there because he has the job there. So they decided mutually that we will be here only. Now what happened? Mrs. Balfour was living in America itself, and Mr. Balfour went again to that other country. What happened now? Mr. Balfour started sending some charges to Mrs. Balfour so that she could easily run the household in America. But after some time, Mr. Balfour stopped sending them charges to run the household. So Mrs. Balfour filed a case on Mr. Balfour stating that he promised me to send this whatever the annuity, you can say, the charges that from which you can run the household. He stopped sending them, and we live apart, and we are living apart. We are not living together. So there is a valid contract between both of us. So he is bound to send money to me every month. But the court decided that although you are living apart, you are not living together, but yet there is natural love and affection between both of you. You are living separated because of your conditions. You are not living separately because you do not have love between you. If you fought and you got separated, that is a secondary matter. But here you got separated from mutual consent, and that too because of a medical issue or whatever the situation was. So the court said that Mr. Balfour is not bound to pay anything to Mrs. Balfour because the contract here is not valid. Reason behind this is, although you are living separately, but there is love and affection between you guys. So in that situation, if there is love and affection between the parties, then if they are living apart also, if they are living separately, then also the contract will not be valid. If love and affection is present, then only the contract will be valid. But if there is no love and affection, then it will move to the general rule, and the general rule states that if there is no consideration, there will be no contract. I'm sure you guys understood whatever I told you. We are studying on page number 51 of your module, topic 1.7.2, no consideration, no contract, exceptions, section 25. Okay, so I have explained the first point, A, natural love and affection, section 25, subsection 1. Okay, next is compensation for services rendered. Compensation for services rendered, or we can say that compensation for voluntary services. Now, sometimes what happens now, you do something for some people and you do not charge anything. You do not charge anything. So that is compensation for voluntary services. So what happens? Am I audible and visible? Can you guys see me and hear me as well? Okay, I guess I'm audible as well as visible. You guys don't reply here, so I get confused that whatever I'm telling you, you are hearing it or not. Okay, next point is compensation for services rendered. Sometimes what happens, we voluntarily do something for other people that they have not asked us to do so. Let's take an example, then we'll understand this point. Now there are two friends, Shah Rukh Khan and Salman Khan. Okay, there are two friends, Shah Rukh Khan and Salman Khan. Both started. Now what happened? Salman Khan had a land. Salman Khan had a very huge land, and Shah Rukh Khan wanted to start a business on that land. Now what happened? Shah Rukh decided that Salman is his friend, so he will take his land on lease and he will start his shoe business there. Now what happened? Shah Rukh took this land from Salman for 10 years of lease. For 10 years of lease, and told him that I will open my factory on this land. Salman also agreed and he gave this property of his on lease. After some time, it was discovered that actually what happened now, when there is a land, an empty land which you have taken for investment, you have to pay taxes on that land. So what happened here, that from last 2 years Salman did not paid any property tax for this property. Okay, for this where Shah Rukh started the business. So what happened, the officer, the income tax officer came here, the tax officer came here and told him that you haven't paid rent tax of this property, so either you pay your tax value for, that was rupees 10 lakhs for suppose. You pay rupees 10 lakh either, or we will seize this property. So Salman thought that okay, you go, you take this land, I will not pay any tax to you. But Shah Rukh was already having a business here and he was running a profitable business on this property. So Shah Rukh decided that he will pay this tax against Salman. Okay, the duty to pay the tax was of Salman, but who paid the tax? Shah Rukh. So what happened here? After some time, when he asked Shah Rukh, Salman, that I have paid rupees 10 lakh on your behalf, which were you supposed to pay, but you did not pay, so I paid it. So this does not mean that Salman is free from his liability. No, in near future he will have to give this 10 lakh rupees to Shahrukh whenever he will have this. He cannot take this excuse that I never told you to do so. No, na, I never told you, so I am not bound to give you anything. But here, although he haven't told anything to him, but he has done something for him. That is, Shahrukh has done something for Salman out of because he wanted to do so. Because he wanted to do so. So whenever you give voluntary service to another person, that does not mean that although you're not getting anything in return, but that does not mean that the contract between you is not valid. Sometimes what happens na, some teachers take free of cost classes. Okay, so there also they are rendering their services, and in return they are not getting anything. Why? Because they are rendering their services free of cost. So they are doing their on their own. So that does not mean that they are free from their liability. No, there also they'll have to teach daily. They'll have to teach daily properly. Reason behind that, there is, although you are not receiving anything in return, but the contract between you is valid. So if you do something voluntarily for the other party, then also your contract becomes valid, even though if it is without consideration. Okay, but in this situation also you'll have to follow certain rules. If you follow these rules, then only these situation will be valid. If you do not follow these rules, then in that case your contract will move to the general rule and your contract will not be valid. What are the situations? First and foremost situation, it is whatever the services you are rendering, you should do that voluntarily. You should do that voluntarily. If you are doing that forcefully, if you are doing that with somebody's influence, then here this situation will not be valid. Why? Because reason here is that is the person who is doing something for you, that person should do that on his own. He must not be forced to do so. That is, he must do everything voluntarily. If you're not doing anything voluntarily, if you're knowingly, or if you are forcefully doing something, or if you are doing something which you were already bound to do that, here this situation will not be valid. So whenever you are doing this contract, just make sure that whatever you are doing is voluntarily. Nobody has forced you to do so. If somebody has forced you to do so, then the contract will not be valid. Contract will only be valid when this condition will be satisfied, that you have done your work voluntarily. Here Shahrukh did this work. Here Shahrukh paid taxes against Salman, taxes of Salman, and that too with with his own in only. He did not, Salman did not ask Shahrukh to do so. Second is services must be rendered for promisor. Now services that you are providing free of cost should be for the promisor only. If you are doing anything for her family member, if you are doing anything for his friend or something like that, that will not come under this head. You should, or I say you must do your work for the promisor only. If you are doing your work apart from promisor, if you are doing it for somebody else, that point will not come here. Next is existence of promisor when services is rendered. The promisor must be in existence when you are rendering the services. If the promisor is not there, if there is actually no promisor only, then the contract will not be valid. So you have to make sure that the work you are doing voluntarily must be in the presence of the promisor. Next is intention of promisor to compensate. In future, whatever the work promisee has done for the promisor, he must compensate that to the promisee. He cannot take this excuse that I never told you to do so, you did it by yourself, you did it voluntarily, so now I am not bound to give you single penny. Now Salman cannot take this excuse that no, because you have paid the taxes, because you had interest in my property, so I will not give anything in return. That will not be possible here. Here the contracts are completely valid, and if in future Salman fails to pay this amount to Shahrukh, then the Shahrukh has all the rights to file a case against Salman, and he can receive every single penny that Shahrukh has paid as taxes That was for Salman. Okay, so here you cannot take this excuse that because I haven't told you to do, you have done everything voluntarily, so there is no contract between us. No, you cannot take that excuse. If somebody is doing something for you, then this is gratitude that you have to return it back. So on the basis of gratitude, law created this law that if law created this rule that if somebody is doing something for you, just be thankful and give him back that thing, that whatever he's done for you. Okay. So next is from intention of promisor to compensate. The promisor must compensate whatever he has received. Promisor must be competent to contract when services was rendered. Make sure the promisor must be competent. That is, he must be allowed to enter into a contract. He must not be minor. He must not be unsound mind, or he must not be disqualified by any other law. So make sure the promisor is a competent party. And last is promisor must give to the person who has rendered the services. Promise must be given to the person who has rendered the services. That means what? Again, the same thing, that whenever this promisor will be fine, will be in a situation to pay you back, the promisor will have to pay each and everything the promisee has done. He has to return that thing. Okay, so this is the concept of voluntary services. When you give your services to somebody else free of cost without any consideration, then also your contract is valid. That does not mean that because there is no consideration between the parties, so the other party will not do anything. Because the party has not told you to do something, then you are not doing, there is nothing like that. If somebody has done something for you voluntarily, then it is your duty to compensate that person back, to bring him on the same position. When we started this class, we told, I already told you that law is all about equality. Law says that nobody should be up and nobody should be down. Both the parties, or whatever the parties are in the contract, all the parties must be on an equitable position. If somebody is giving you something and the other is not getting anything in return, then there will be inequality. So law says that if somebody has done something for you, then you should also do something for that other person, so that both must come at a equitable position in future. Next point is time bar debt. Now what is this time bar debt? Time bar debt means what? Whenever you give debt to somebody, whenever you give debt to somebody, in that case, whenever this debt is getting mature, from the date of maturity, you get a time period of 3 years. You get a time period of 3 years to recover your money back. Now for example, I took a loan of rupees 10 lakh from my friend. I took a loan of rupees 10 lakh from my friend, and I promised him that I will give you this money on suppose New Year. On 1st of January, I'll give you this money back. Now what happened? On 1st January, I failed to give this money back to him. But he never asked me again. He never asked me. Might be he forgot that he had given me some money. Now what happened like this? He never asked me, so a time period of 3 years was gone. A time period of 3 years was gone. After 4 years, he realized that, yeah, before 4 years, I have given rupees 10 lakh to Megha and she has not given me till date. So when he demanded 10 lakhs from me, he demanded rupees 10 lakh today, I refused to pay. No, I'll not give anything. I've taken money from you 4 years back. You haven't asked me from 4 years to return this money, and now I don't have money. I don't have 10 lakh rupees. I'll not give you. So what happened? My friend filed a case against me. When he went to the court of law, before filing the case, only the application for the case was rejected. The reason of this rejection was this was a time bar debt. Time bar debt means what? Immediately from the date of maturity, you get a time period of 3 years to recover debt. You have to recover that debt. You have to take action to recover that debt. If you are not doing anything, if you are not taking any action against the other party to receive the debt that you have given, then the time period for this is 3 years. After 3 years, if you have not done anything, if you have not even single time, you have not even asked the party to give your money back, then the debt becomes time barred, and now you will get nothing. Now you will not get anything. So this is a time barred debt. If you, like, for example, if my friend in this 4 years have, even if single time he asked me for the money and I did not give him, then this that has must not have become time barred. But because from 4 years he had not asked me a single time to receive this money back, he has not taken any steps to take his money back, then this debt becomes a time bar debt. The Law of Limitation Act 1963 states that when you give debt to somebody, then in that case, from the date of maturity, you get a time period of 3 years to legally receive the debt back. Now what happened? I took this debt from my friend. After 4 years, I refused to pay. But after 10 to 20 years, I realized, when I was sitting in the corner of my house, I realized that no, at that time I did something wrong. At that time, I did something wrong. I must have not argued with him, and I must have given him this money, because when I was in the need of money, he gave me the money. And when he was in the need of money, I refused. And he was not able to do anything against me. So I got this realization and I called him after 10 years and I told him that at that time I took 10 lakh rupees from you. But I was not that mature at that time. But today I am promising you that in next 2 months, I will give you your entire money back. Now, what happens here? This contract was way back, that is before 10 years. This contract became time barred. Before 10 years, this contract became time barred. When the contract becomes time barred, the contract is cancelled. There the contract comes to an end. But today I am again making this contract, again promising you that I will give you the debt that I have taken in past, and that debt has become time barred. So what happened here? Here this contract is without consideration, because today I'm giving you rupees 10 lakh and in return I'm not getting anything, right? So what happens here? If you are again promising to pay a debt which has been time barred, either fully or partially, you can make this promise partially also, that I have taken you rupees 10 lakh, but I do not have 10 lakh. We will have final settlement in 8 lakhs. I will give you 8 lakhs back. So this could be either full or partial. So what happens here? Here I promised to my friend that yes, I will give you the money back now. So here also, if there is no consideration between us today, then also the contract is valid. But again, for validation, you need to follow some rules. The rules are, firstly, there must be some debt. That is, in past, I must have taken something from somebody. Then if there is no debt, then this point will not come. Second, the debt has become time barred. If the debt has not become time barred, then here it will not come. Like the maturity, from the date of maturity, 3 years have not been exceeded, then this point will not be valid. Third, when you are making this promise again, then this promise must be in writing. Reason behind this is you have not paid your debt in past also, so I do not trust you now. Now, if you are promising me to pay this money today or after 2 months, then make sure you give this thing in return. Why? Because return document is the best proof. Now, if he do not give me again this money, then I will have a valid reason to file a case against this person, and I will have a solid proof, a written document. Okay, so if you are again making this contract, again reviving this debt, then in that case this debt must be in writing. If this debt is not in return, then your contract will not be valid. After writing, even he must sign the document. That is, if I am promising him to pay rupees 10 lakh after 2 months, then I should do this in writing, and that too I will have to make sure that I have done my signature on this paper. If I have not done signature, then this paper will just be a piece of paper for that party. It will not be a solid proof. So just writing is not enough. You have to make sure that apart from writing, you have to sign it also. The party who is making this has to sign it also. And this promise can be either of the whole debt or of the partial debt. Even make sure that this rule is applicable only when the debt you took was for legal work. If the debt was for illegal work, like for example, if I have taken a debt of rupees 10 lakh from my friend to purchase weed. Purchasing weed, selling weed is not legal. So here, if I have taken this debt for this purpose, then this will not come under this head. Reason behind this is only the debts which are of legal nature, comes here. If you have taken debt for some illegal purpose, for something which is not allowed in law, then in that case the contract will not be valid. Okay, so make sure, again I'm revising this. Time bar debt means a debt which has not been recovered, or the person have never tried to recover this debt for 3 years from the date of maturity. That is a time bar debt. But if you promise to pay this time bar debt again after some time, after it has become time barred, then in that case you have to make that promise in writing. You have to sign that document. You have to only those debts are valid which are legal, and lastly you can promise to pay the entire debt or a part of the debt. Okay, whole or partial. Next is completed gifts. Gifts are always without consideration. Okay, we do not give somebody for consideration. Like if I have gifted you something, that does not mean that I want something in return. No, gifts are always without consideration and gifts are valid. If somebody has gifted me a gold necklace, then I have not given anything in return to that person, but yet that gold necklace will belong to me only. Although there is no consideration, but the contract is valid. The gold necklace will be mine only. Okay, so gifts are always without consideration, yet the contract between the parties is valid. Next is agency. Now, the rule of agency says that वैसे तो whenever you appoint an agent, you have to give commission to that agent, but it is not necessary. If somebody is working for you as an agent and if you're not giving anything in return to that person, that is also valid. Agency can also be without consideration. If suppose my friend has opened a clothes shop, and now if I am selling clothes on his behalf and I am not charging anything for that, so technically I am the agent of my friend. Why? Because I am selling this on his behalf, right? So here the contract between him and me will be of agency. That is, I will be his agent and he will be my principal. He is not giving anything in return. I am selling so many items for him, but he is not giving me anything in return, but yet the contract between us will be valid. In future, if I do something, then he has all the rights to file a case against me. Vice versa, if he does something, then I have all the right to file a case against this. The contract between us becomes valid only. Now, for example, if I am his agent and I'm not getting anything in return. Now, what happened? I do a fraud of rupees 10,000 on his name. Now here, technically, he filed a case against me saying that she was my agent and she did this fraud. But what happened? I took this excuse that I never demanded anything in return. I never took anything from him. So technically, there is no consideration between us, so the contract is not valid. But the court will decide that although there is no consideration, but you are doing work on his behalf. That means what? Technically, you are the agent of this person. So agency rule says that agency can be with consideration, agency can be without consideration also. If you're not getting anything in return, but then also your the contract of agency will be valid. So here consideration is not necessary, but yet the contract is valid. Guarantee, when you're giving guarantee against somebody, like guarantee is what, when you take loan from somebody and that person do not know you, but he knows some other person and he takes your guarantee that yeah, she will give you money on this date, I take guarantee. Now what is the guarantee? Guarantee is that I am giving you, I am assuring that if she does not pay the amount she has taken, I am there, I will pay this. Okay, so if you are taking guarantee, then this guarantee is also free of cost. This guarantee is also without consideration. That person has not demanded anything from me. Now, if that person had must have told me that if you will give 10,000, then only I'll give guarantee on behalf of you, then this will not come. This must have not come under this head. But because he is doing this act voluntarily, he is giving guarantee on his my behalf, and he is not charging anything from me, then also the contract will be valid. And last is remission. Remission means accepting on a lesser value. Sometimes what happens now, you accept something, for example, if I taken debt from my friend for rupees 10 lakh, okay, but today my condition is not so that I am able to pay rupees 10 lakh again to my friend. So we decided that we will do full, and you must have you must have studied this thing in accounts, that full and final settlement wala thing. Same here. Now what happened here, I promised him to pay rupees 8 lakh, that I have only 8 lakhs today, so I will give you 8 lakhs. What my friends told me that okay, in 8 lakhs we will do full and final settlement, that is on 8 lakhs our contract will be closed. In future he cannot demand more from me. In future he cannot demand more for me. We have decided that we will complete this in 8 lakhs. So this is remission. When you accept at a lesser value, he was supposed to get rupees 10 lakh, but he will receive only rupees 8 lakh. He is receiving rupees 10 lakh, rupees 2 lakh lesser than the amount he gave. So here this is remission. So remission, here also you are not getting full consideration, entire consideration you are not receiving, but still the contract is valid. In future, you cannot demand the other person to give you the remaining amount. No, you cannot demand that. I hope this topic is clear till here. If you have any doubts, just ask me here. If you do not have any doubts, then we'll move to the next topic. Okay, so somebody was asking me about past year questions. I googled them. Okay, if you'll write past year, previous year question paper for CAT, you'll receive the sample papers on any website. Okay, so I've searched some of them and I found that they are on Google. Okay, so if you're finding any problem, then just write on Google past year question papers. You can get solved question also there. Okay, so if you'll write this, there will be many websites where these question papers are available, past year papers. Enforceable means something you can take into the court of law. If the contract is enforceable, means that if there is dispute between you and me, then we can take this dispute to the court of law. And unenforceable means what? You cannot take this dispute to the court of law. If now if there is any fight between husband and wife, they cannot take this fight to the court of law, that will I'll see you in the court. No, it is just the ordinary fight, and that too between husband and wife, that cannot be taken to the court of law. So this means enforceability means something which could be taken to the court of law, on which action could be taken. Okay, let's move to the next topic. The next topic in your module is agreements expressly declared as void. I am leaving this topic here. Reason behind this is in future when we'll complete this contract act, at that time all these topics will be cleared. All these topic will be cleared. So that is why I'm leaving that. And if somebody and if some topic is left behind, then we will do at that time. All these agreements will be the whatever the agreements are void will be discussed in future chapters. Okay, that is why I'm leaving this chapter right now. But in the end of the contract act, when we'll complete this act, then we'll come to this chapter again. Next topic in your course is contingent contract and quasi contract. These topics moves together. Okay, so firstly we'll in your book first it is given contingent contract and another it is given quasi contract, but we will do quasi contract first and then second we'll do contingent contract. Okay, recession. देखो बेटा, there are two terms. One is remission and another is recession. Recession means cancellation. If I cancel the contract between you and me, then that means what? The contract is rescinded. The contract, there is rescission, that is cancellation. And remission means accepting at a lesser value. Bargaining you do, that is a part of remission. Why? Because the cost of the product was rupees 100 and I got that product in rupees 80, that is in 20 rupees less. This is remission. Okay, and that too with mutual consent. Okay, so both the terms are different. If you are asking about rescission, rescission means cancellation. Okay. Okay, I'll search it again. I'll let you know. I found something on Google the last day I was scrolling Google at that time. If I'll scroll it again, if I found any link, then I'll share it here. Okay. Next topic is on page number 61. Page number 61, quasi contract. Section 68 to section 72. Section 68 to section 72 we are studying right now. All these sections are for quasi contract. Okay, so quasi contract, what happens here is the meaning of quasi. If you'll search on net, if you'll any time, if you get some time, just write Bare Act of Contract Act. Bare Act of Indian Contract Act. Now what the Bare Act is, it is the complete act. How it was made, it is completely in that format only. All these books copy these sections from Bare Act itself. Books just make the language simple so that you understand it. If you'll read the Bare Act, you'll find many problems interpreting the statutes. Okay, so these books help there also. If there is some problem in the book, we always refer Bare Act. So if you see the Bare Act, the definition of quasi contract is not given anywhere. The reason behind this is the quasi contract is a contract which is based on the principle of equity. The quasi contract is a contract which is based on the principle of equity. Actually, it is no contract. Why? Because on the day one, when we started this contract act, the first and foremost step was you have to make an offer. And when the other party will accept that, when there will be consideration, when there will be enforceability, then a contract will be formed. So there were many steps to follow, right? I told you the contract is upper wala room, first floor, and to reach that room you have to climb some steps. So when I talk about quasi contracts, there are no steps. There are no steps. Here, nobody makes an offer. Nobody accepts that offer. There is nothing like that. All here is based on equality. All here is based on equality. Okay. For example, when we started the chapter, um, minor wala chapter. Okay. In that chapter, we studied that when a minor is incompetent, when there is nobody to look after the minor, then the court of wards appoints a guardian. Appoints a guardian that will look out after this minor for a time period until he gets the age of majority. So what happens here is, now the minor has never told this guardian to take care for himself. Okay, the guardian has never given the offer to the minor that will you take care of mine? No, there was no offer and acceptance between the parties here. But yet on the whenever this minor will become major, he will be bound to pay the amount that has been occurred on that has been actually spent on this minor until the age of maturity for necessaries. Now this guardian will be bound to get all this money back from the minor whenever he'll become major. From the part of his property, he'll give that part to the guardian just because he has taken care of minor. So here the minor cannot take this excuse that contract happens only when there is offer and acceptance. So here you never gave me an offer, or I never gave you an offer that you will have to take care of me. You did it by yourself. So here I am not bound to pay you a single penny from my property. The minor can never take this excuse. Reason behind this is, although there was no offer and acceptance between the minors, but on the basis of humanity, the court has appointed this person. So if he has taken care for you, if he has done expenses for you, for providing necessaries to you, then it is your duty then that at time when you become competent, at time when you attain majority, now you give that thing to back. Now although there is no contract between minor and guardian, but yet there is a silent contract present between this minor and guardian, and that contract is known as quasi contract. Now what is quasi contract? It is a contract which is based on the principle of equity, which states that nobody could enrich himself on the expenses of another. No one should enrich himself on the expenses of another. The meaning here is that, for example, that here also, today also we discussed that law is all about equality. Nobody should be like this, nobody should be like this. Both the parties must be at an equitable position. If you are giving somebody to another person, for example, this person is always giving something to this person and not receiving anything. This person will be on a higher position and this person will go down. Now what happens here is, this is guardian and this is minor. Okay, this guardian is giving necessaries, supplying necessaries to minor. So what happens? Guardian is giving, minor is raising. Guardian is giving, guardian is not receiving anything. Guardian is just giving. Minor got everything, but guardian got nothing. Law says that this is not done. Both the parties must be here. So whenever this minor will become major, he will give all this money that has been spent by the guardian on necessaries to the minor, to the guardian. So what will happen? The guardian and minor will come at a equitable position. So this is a quasi contract. The quasi contract says that whenever you are making a contract, make sure that no one should enrich himself on the expenses of another. Both the parties must be on a equitable position. So this is a quasi contract. Now we'll study some important features of quasi contract. First and foremost, it is imposed by law and does not arise by agreement. All the contracts we have studied till date arise out of agreements. There was offer, other party accepted the offer, and this is the way the contract was created. But quasi contract is not like that. Quasi contract is imposed by law. The law is forcefully, if you will not do willingly, then the law will force you to do that. Now there is no agreement, there is no mutual agreement between the minor and the guardian, but yet the law has imposed a silent contract between them, and that contract is known as quasi contract. Now in future, if this minor denies to pay any amount to guardian, then in that case guardian has all the right to file a case against the minor and receive this money back. So firstly, it is not created by agreement, it is imposed by law. Second, the duty of a party and not the promise of any party in basis of such contract. What happens, what this line means, that it arises out of duty. It arises out of duty and not out of promise. That is, the party has never promised to do something for you. He has done something for you. Now you are supposed to revert that back. Okay, he has already done something for you, so it is your duty that you give that thing back to that person. Okay, so here these contracts do not arises out of promises. These contract arises due to duties of the person. Next is the right under it is always a right to money, and though not always a liquidated sum of money. Now what means here this line was not necessary. Reason behind this is, if you have given services also to somebody, it is not only because of money. If you have done anything in service form also, then also it is considered same here. If you have done something for the other party, then the other party will give you that thing back. Okay, next is the right. A suit for breach may be filed in the same way as in case. That means what? Like general contracts, that have offer and acceptance between them, that arises by agreement. Just like those contracts, you can also file a valid case for quasi contracts also. Now if the minor fails to pay the amount that the guardian has spent for the necessaries to the other person, then in that case this guardian has all the right to file a case against the minor. Okay, minor can never take this excuse, just because I have never told you to do anything for me, you have done everything on your own. There were no acceptance, there was no offer between us, so there is no contract, so you go to hell, I will not give you any money for this. He cannot take this excuse. If the guardian filed a case against the minor will bound to pay this amount to guardian. If he did not pay, then he will be penalized. Okay, so these are some of the features of a quasi contract. Similarity between quasi contracts and other contracts. The basic similarity between both the contract is remedies. For both the contracts, if there is a ordinary contracts and if there is a quasi contract, in both the situation, the other party who is at a loss, who is aggrieved party, will always have remedies, will always go to the court to get equality. Okay, so in both the situation, either it is a quasi contract or it is a natural contract, that is which is formed out of agreement, that is in which there is offer, acceptance, consideration, everything. Just like that, quasi contracts will also have equal importance like other contracts. Okay, so quasi contract is when it is for, dekho, two conditions you have to remember, two features you will have to remember. Quasi contracts, the most two important features of quasi contracts are, firstly, they are imposed by law. They are imposed by law. And secondly, these contracts are based on the principle of equity. These contracts are based on the principle of equity. Okay, I hope the definition of quasi contract is clear. Anybody has any doubt? Next topic is some situations of quasi contracts are given, that what are the some examples of quasi contracts are given. Okay, that examples we'll discuss in our next class. So today it is till here only. Do if anybody has any doubt till this topic, you can ask me here. If you do not have any doubts, then you can easily leave this class. Okay. Thank you everyone. Have a nice day. I'm here for 5 minutes. If you have any doubts, if you have any queries, you can ask me here. ओके अगर हिंदी में मैं क्वासी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स को एक्सप्लेन करती हूँ, तो क्वासी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट का मतलब होता है कि जब आप किसी के लिए कुछ करते हो, जब आप किसी के लिए कुछ करते हो बट सामने वाले आपको उस समय पे कुछ नहीं देता है, दैट इज अगर आप किसी के लिए सिर्फ करते जा रहे हो करते जा रहे हो करते जा रहे हो, वापस रिटर्न में आपको कुछ नहीं मिलता, तो इसका ये मतलब नहीं होता है कि अब आपको कुछ मिलेगा ही नहीं। जैसे हमने माइनर और गार्जियन का एग्जाम्पल लिया था, ये जो कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स होते हैं इसमें क्या होता है ना कि जैसे नॉर्मल कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स में ऑफर और एक्सेप्टेंस होता है ना, वैसे यहाँ पे कुछ नहीं होता है। यहाँ पे कोई आपको ऐसा नहीं बोलता है कि भाई अब मैं तुझे बुक बेचना चाहता हूँ, तुम खरीदोगे क्या, नहीं, इधर कोई भी ऐसे ऑफर एक्सेप्टेंस वाली सिचुएशन नहीं होती है। ये कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स जो होते हैं ये सिचुएशनल पे, ये सिचुएशन पे बेस्ड होते हैं। ये कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स इसलिए बने होते हैं ताकि किसी और के नुकसान पे किसी दूसरे बंदे का फायदा नहीं हो जाए। अब यहाँ पे क्या होता है, गार्जियन का क्या ड्यूटी होती है कि जब तक माइनर मेजर में कन्वर्ट नहीं हो जाता तब तक वो क्या करे, उसको नेसेसरीज प्रोवाइड करे। तो अब गार्जियन क्या करेगा, नेसेसरीज प्रोवाइड करता जाएगा करता जाएगा करता जाएगा, और रिटर्न में माइनर उसको कुछ भी नहीं दे रहा। तो यहाँ पे एक रूल बना दिया गया कि जैसे ही माइनर मेजर बन जाएगा तो मेजर को क्या करेगा, वो मेजोरिटी जब भी हो जाएगी, उसकी 18 साल से ऊपर उम्र हो जाएगी, तब वो क्या करेगा, उसको वापस से उतना खर्चा उतना पैसा दे देगा जितना उसने उसके ऊपर नेसेसरीज के ऊपर आज तक खर्चा किया है। तो वो कल को ये एक्सक्यूज ना ले ले कि भाई मैंने तुमको नहीं बोला था कि तुम मेरी देखभाल करो, तुमने मेरी देखभाल अपनी मर्जी से करी है, राइट, मैंने तुमको कोई ऑफर नहीं दिया कि क्या तुम मेरी देखभाल करोगे क्या। तो यहाँ पे क्योंकि मैंने तुमको कोई ऑफर नहीं दिया तो हमारे बीच में तो कोई कॉन्ट्रैक्ट ही नहीं, क्योंकि ऑफर कॉन्ट्रैक्ट की पहली सीढ़ी ही ऑफर होती है, और तुमने पहली सीढ़ी ही नहीं पार करी तो मैं तुमको 1 रुपया भी नहीं दूंगा। भले ही यहाँ पे माइनर और गार्जियन के बीच में कोई भी किसी तरीके का कॉन्ट्रैक्ट शुरू में नहीं हुआ था, बट क्योंकि इक्वालिटी के बेसिस पे अगर हम देखें, समानता के बेसिस पे अगर हम देखें, तो यहाँ पे दोनों एक अच्छी पोजीशन पे, दोनों एक सेम पोजीशन पे होने चाहिए। बट यहाँ पे माइनर तो पहुंच गया यहाँ पे क्योंकि इसको तो फायदा हो गया, इसको तो सारी चीजें मिल गई, और गार्जियन को रिटर्न में कुछ नहीं मिला। तो लॉ ये बोलती है कि क्योंकि तुमको सारी चीजें दी है ना इसने, तो अब तुम इसको वापस से ये चीजें रिटर्न करो, दैट इज जो भी इसने तुम्हारे ऊपर खर्चा किया ये वापस से दो, तो दोनों पार्टीज एक सिमिलर पोजीशन पे आ जाएगी। ओके, तो यहाँ पे क्योंकि ये वापस इसको खर्चा दे रहा है और नहीं देता है तो लॉ इससे निकलवाएगा वो खर्चा। तो इस कॉन्ट्रैक्ट को हम बोलते हैं क्वासी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट, जहां पे किसी के नुकसान पे किसी का फायदा ना हो जाए, तो ये होता है क्वासी कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स। ये कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स जो होते हैं ये अग्रीमेंट के थ्रू नहीं बनते हैं, ये कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स बनते हैं, ये कॉन्ट्रैक्ट सिचुएशनल होते हैं, सिचुएशन के हिसाब से बनते हैं। ओके, क्लियर। Okay. Thank you, everyone.